We're holding now in Likkutei Sichos, Mטות-מסעי, Ois Hey. Das is wie the Inyan is B'cholos. So what we explained yesterday is the concept as a whole. Hazididis and Neshama is Merumas in Parshas Matzos, and there's Schar V'Aliyah in Parshas Masei. A Matis and its reward is alluded to. The descent of the Neshama is alluded to in Parshas Matis, and its reward and descent is alluded to in Parshas Masei. Now, the Pratis aber is Sayin Matis and Sayin Masei Merumas. Hein die Yedidus an Neshama and Hein die Avedas an Neshama in Ir Schar V'Aliyah. Now, both Matis and Masei, if you look specifically, they allude to the descent of the Neshama and also its divine service and the reward and the ascent that results from its service during its descent into this world. Now, what does that mean? Die Hartkeit und Starkheit von Matis weiß nicht nur auf dem, was die Neshama ist geworden, wie Adaver Niffer für den Elikus-Kanal, nor is Merames auf euch auf dem Teikef Haveda, was darf sein und ist da bei jedem Lamata. Now, this firmness and strength of Matis does not only allude to the fact that the Neshama appears to have become separated from its source in godliness, as stated above, but also as a positive, it's a positive thing. It alludes to the strength of the Aveda that a Yid must and does exhibit with his Nefesh Bahamas. Malachas kam bekannt von Welt, darf man stehen mit der Chizuk beteike von Amata, a starken Stecken, in the spol zu werden beistehen alle halamis v'asteirim. So in the world, we have to stand with a starkheit, like a stick, and not to be the spol, not to be to be affected or phased by the world. B'shas hayid dolamata tut sein aveda b'teirim mitzvos mit starkheit und wert in the spol von alle halamis. Now, when a yid on this physical plane carries out his aveda with strength and is not the spol, is not daunted by all the obstacles and hindrances, is if sein schar in them beginnen von Mate, es kommt zu ihm der Neshama ateke v'chezek von der sheishen Neshama von Eisen Neshama noch mehr die Neshama hat gehad b'shas is given the Mailam b'chinas shevet. Now, when a Yid carries out on a physical plane and he's not daunted by all the obstacles and hindrances, so his reward is also associated with a Mata. His neshama is given the power and the strength rooted in its source, which is the level of Eson within his neshama, and this exceeds the power possessed by the by the neshama in the spiritual realms when it was on the level of Shevet. Is thus als brumas in Masei. Now, and like in the same way, this is also alluded to in Masei. Masei l'shadav is if meramis if them masa neshama l'mamayla l'mata ne'lam hazeh. Now, Masei, which is plural, it alludes to the many phase journeys of the neshama. First, you have the soul's first journey that requires that it descends from the spiritual realms to the material plane on our world. And thus was sein by dem Yidin Lamata die Aveda b'derech Masu na'aliyah von Darga to Darga hecher and hecher. And then you have on the physical plane, a Yid's soul must carry out the Aveda of journeying, ascending from level to level, higher and higher. And also, when der Schar, was the Neshama vakum durch them, is Masei, as the Ila Neshama is in an Eifen von Hilach. And also the reward of the Neshama that receives as a result of the journeys, the soul is able to ascend in a manner of one who progresses. In other words, it ascends is not merely in a gradual and limited sense, but also in a radical nature. That's the idea. Even though we're saying that Mata is we're saying that B'chlolis, we explained that there's two different Avedas, but also in the actual Masei, Mטות-מסעי, you have these two levels of working and of Schar. Vav. Pika and alles verstandig, die Sheichos from Parshas Mטות-מסעי to Ben HaMetzar. Based on this, we can also understand the connection between Parshas Mטות-מסעי and Ben HaMetzar. Ufto in dem Inyan Hanal von Matis und Masei, das, was die Neshama kommt darauf Lamata und darf dortan ihr Aveda beteike b'chuli, weil der Zed Schar ist Beker nicht euch azay mitzad etzem Yedidus an Neshama, nor mitzad der Yedida in Zman HaGolas in dem Inyan von Ben HaMetzar. Now, this unique, the accomplishment of Mטות-מסעי It is that the neshama has to come down into the world and put Veda, and also the schar is beikar not mitzad the etzam neshama, but mitzad the yerida, that it has to come down in the time of Galus, and which came about due to the events which occurred in Ben HaMitzvah. When Jiden haben gesehen und gehört, Alikus begollen, wie Mela seinen See gestanden, beginnen Bittel und Weges bei Alikus, der Shabbat ist kach Baliris, und sehr abweit ist, wenn Alikus, auf dem kann man nicht sagen, als sie seinen Gewinn an Eifen von Mathe ist different mehr Ilan, nur bei Eifen von Shevet. Verbunden mit dem Shedish V'Gufa Ilan. Now, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, when the 10 miracles were performed for our Aviseinu in the Beis HaMikdash, the Yidden saw and perceived godliness. As a natural result, they achieved it. And attached to Hashem and Dveikus, as Chacham says, just as one came to see godliness, so too did he come to present himself and be seen by Hashem. At that time, a Yid's divine service was categorized by love and fear of Hashem. It cannot be said that in such a state is comparable to a mato, a branch which we said is severed from the tree. The analogy of a shevet, a branch connected with the roots in the trunk of a tree, is more of appropriate description. They haben the river da nicht darf ankommen zu they ton the aveda von Torah mitzvahs. Und made those movements is euch nicht ins Gala geworden der Eisen Shemen Neshama. So they did not require unique strength to carry out the observance of Torah and its mitzvahs. However, as a result, it's understood that the level of Eisen within the Neshama was not revealed within them. Zman Galus aber wenn Likkutei sich nicht an und hört sich nicht azay wie bisman habais. Sein da azay verlammens was Torah für Likkutei. Was der Fahr sein jeden Namen von der Matis, es setzt sich nicht sehr Dweckes in Likkutei, darfen sie drüber herausrufen und Megala sei bei sich a viel starken Teikev, auf zu bekommen, die Minis wie kommen auf der Arbeit von der Mitzvahs, auf Frage noch auf zum Haber sein dem Cheshach HaGalus L'Nehera. Now, by contrast, in the era of Galus, godliness is not seen or perceived, as was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, it's concealed. Yid's functions, the Yid's function as Matis, their attachment to Elikus is not visible. Therefore, it's necessary for them to call forth and reveal more of a powerful inner strength in order to overcome the obstacles obstructing the Torah mitzvahs, and especially to transform the darkness of Galus into light. Therefore, is demolt auf sehr schar in dem Eufen von Matis, as der Teke von Etzem Neshama, wird dann ist Gale mehr wie bisman habais und wie beeist Neshama is l'mayla. Now, for this reason, the reward the neshama receives in time of Galus is also described with analogy of matis, because the strength of the essence of the neshama is revealed to a greater extent than it was in the era of the Beis HaMikdash, and even greater than it was when the neshama existed in the spiritual realms before it ascended into the world. Now, the challenges of Galus generate the potential for Masei, enabling the neshama to progress. And similar concepts applied to the other journeys of the neshama alluded to by the word of Masei. Zayin. Das altes Gerät geworden wegen an Ihnen, was es euch da mit die Parshas Matis und Masei mit Asmam. Das heißt, euch, wenn sie seien nicht mechubar ist. Now, all the above that we explained, when Parshas Matis Masei are read individually during separate weeks. Now, when in the years that they are read together, as in the practice in most years, each one has an effect on the other, leading to a further lesson that empowers us to carry out the Avodah. Not only that, it also gives us an Esinas Kayach, which every single one could be put on the second person. Das heißt, demult is done Esinas Kayach Miyuchedes, as the Avodah soll sein in a hechra Eufen und jeder Gisa soll sie ankommen leichter. Which means that such a time we're giving a special Esinas Kayach, that the Avodah should be higher even for the other person, to make it easier to perform. In dem Inyan, the Rebbe explains, what does that mean? In dem Inyan for Matis, is the Yerida in Zman HaGolus is Mudgush as das is Masi. As das hat der Eberster also geführt, wie die Masois in Midbar Kipshutam was einen Gewinn al Pi Hashem Yisrael. V'mele Gittes as Patzela Idud und the Seves Ois in the Aveda and Golus. Now, regarding the descent into Golus, Matis, the combination of these two parshas highlights that the descent is Masi, a journey by Hashem. Just as the actual journeys of the Jewish people in the desert were by the word of Hashem, so too the journey of every neshama and the journeys of the Jewish people in Golus are all Hashgacha Pratis. And knowing this gives us an encouragement and greater strength in our Aveda. Derech zeh is the Aveda von Matis. Wie das ist zusammen mit Masi. Hat man eine Sinneskeit von Teda, als in jeder Indien, was Yid tut bei Avedase, bis man Agala soll sein, der Teke von Matis, and if von Masi. Similarly, when the Aveda of Matis is combined with Masi, the Torah gives us greater empowerment, making it possible that the strength of Matis be manifest in every element of a Yid's Aveda during Galus. Ile acher ile in them take it from Matis, which journeying forward in a manner of Masei enables one to continuously ascend higher and higher of the strength of Matis. This also relates to the third aspect of Matis. The taken from Shadish and Hashama was werden is gal in the Aveda von Matis is ba'ifin shamasi als a hechler Shadish bis a safe is an ile was der greich to a takev was is hecher von a takev von Shadish and Hashama. And this is like the third aspect of Matis, combining the parshas, which enables the strength of the root of the neshama that is revealed through the divine service of Matis to be revealed in a manner of Masei, which means that you empower the neshama to reach even a loftier level within its roots and its source. And indeed, ultimately, the neshama is empowered to ascend and reach a strength that surpasses the strength of the root of the neshama. Because the strength of the root of the neshama is gvul, it's limited. Durch der Stemsaveda und eine von Matis in Zman HaGolus wird die Neshama das auch noch hecher davon in Likus, was es bli gvul, bis die Stab guf der Malka, as he wird ein Sach keviyachol mit Atzmos. Now, through the Aveda in a manner of Matis during Golus, the soul ascends to even a higher level, an unlimited level of godliness, which transcends creation entirely. And the neshama has the potential to proceed until, like the saying is, it absorbs in the body of the king, becoming a single entity, as it were, with Hashem's essence. Olidach is der Masi der Schar v'alicha. And the neshama niten an der Zman Nors kommt zusammen mit Matis. Das heißt, als schön demult, wenn Ayid gefindt sich da lamata, tut sich bei ihm euch auf der Alicha v'aliyah. Now, Masi, which is the reward of the soul, receives by coming, has an effect on Matis. The reward does not come as separate time, but rather is manifest together with Matis. While the neshama still finds itself on the Gashmistic plane, it already has manifest within it the progress of Halicha. Ches, api zeh wird man verstehen die Sheiches von die zwei Inyanim. Was dafke, wenn Parshas Matis Masei zane mechubares leint min und min learns, it's possible to understand the connection between the two concepts. That specifically when we read Matis Masei are joined together in Parshas Pinchas, and at times at this year also, the year that the Rebbe said the Sichos, also Balak is read, and it's read during Ben HaMetzarim, was the Chedesh stellt sich die Shaila. Wie azoi kemen mannen bei Yidden, as in jeder Masse, stehen mit der Teke begezik von Matis, seien da der verschiedene Chilukim in den Masois von Yidden Meshach im Echayev, Shinuim and Alias Viridis, bis as ze kennen sein, min HaKotza LaKotza. Now, the question is, how is it possible to ask a Yid to stand with the strength and power of Matis in every phase of his life, when the journey involves so many different variations? He experiences many different ascents and descents and changes at times from one extreme to another extreme. Now, Mele, when a person is departing from Ramses, when he first left Mitzrayim, as we know, the Yidden left Biad Ramal Einikom Mitzrayim. So, other by Masa, was man hat geführt zu Midbar Sinai, kann man verstehen. As damals das Masam, so far lang in dem Tekev, was man darf nutzen, aufzugehen nach Hecher in der Aveda. Wie kann man aber fordern bei jedem dem Tekev, wenn halt bei Masse von Risma, also man schon hat, schon Maragdim, oder in Ovel Hashitim, was verbunden mit der Chet von Peir. And the Rebbe asks, Mela, when a Yid departs from Ramses, when they first left Mitzrayim, when the children of Israel left in an exalted manner before the eyes of the Egyptians, or the phase corresponding to the journey which brought the Yid into Har Sinai, it's understandable how it's appropriate to demand that the strength necessary to rise higher in his Aveda. When, however, one is in a phase comparing to the journey of Risma, which is given the name because of the spies, Lashon Hara, or comparable to the play of Mashitim when the Yids committed the Baal Pa'ar, how is it possible to demand that one proceed further with his inner strength as we described above? If that is the answer, so what do we say? What's the answer? Parshas Pinchas. Parshas Pinchas is the answer. Wenn der Teikif in Avedas mitzad sein eigener Metzies, bald der Mensch ist am Mugbol nicht sein dem Teikif Cholam Asois. Schas aber sein Teikif in Avedas al derech wie bei Pinchas bekanes Kinasi hat sich eingestellt und es ist never repelled befnei Kol Am Yisrael, wenn beim Jiden ist da als Hakdama die Tnuf es ist never repelled, geht der Reis von sein Metzies, ist damals kein Chilig nicht da bei was for a Masse halt und führt durch den Tzivei Hashem mit denselben Teikif. Now, when the strength of a person's Aveda stems from his own identity, since, like all people, they're limited, it's possible to demonstrate the same strength in every phase of his journey. However, when the strength for his Aveda resembles that of Pinchas, which we said, Bekanias Kinasi, he was zealous for Hashem's sake, and standing up with actual Mr. Nevish before the entire Jewish people, he transcends his individual identity, and at that point, the phase where he is found within his individual journey makes a chibur from the Aveda from Matis, the Aveda from Matis, down and Malain to Parshas Pinchas in the Zelbet Kuf of Men Amtzorn. Frat later the Kvias Pashana Zu was Malain nicht nur wegen dem Eberschen Scharfar Meise Pinchas nor Parshas Balk, was bestimmte wird erzählt if Meise Amtzor's Nevesh Shalei. Was sein Eifen is the Nesinas Hakeach if Achib B'Shlemus from Mטות-מסעי. Now, from this is understood that the perfection, this fusion that we have of the Aveda of Mטות-מסעי is achieved specifically when Parshas Pinchas is also read in the period of Bein HaMetzarim, and this is especially true in a year like that year, when not only we read about the reward that Hashem gave Pinchas for his actions, but we also read Parshas Balak, whose conclusion describes Parshas Pinchas with Mesiras Nefesh. This approach to Aveda is exemplified. He exemplifies powers, which exemplifies powers that perfect the fusion and the theme of Matis and Masei. Test. A similar question you can ask regarding the question of the connection, the schar between Matis and Masei. Wie kommt die Neshama, befragt, wie sie kommt darauf lamate in dem Bein HaMetzarim von Golas Zukunft zum Ingen von Masei, zum Gödel Teke von Neshama, und wie is Hecher, wie sie ist in dem Sheish an Neshama l'mayla l'mayla. How is it possible for the Neshama, particularly after it descends into Golas, Bein HaMetzarim, to reach Masei, the great strength of the Neshama, including even a level loftier than the highest source of the Neshama? Furthermore, how can that level shine within the Neshama as a mate? Again, Nachmer, as does Omer Zain by the Neshama, and we're asking that the level shine with the soul as its mata. In other words, hardening by having to face the challenges of the physical plane, and particularly in Zman HaGolus. The Cheder binnegeht der Schar von der Aveda von Bechol Meidcha zu welcher der Neshama kommt zu all Idee die das Lemata und befragt in Zman HaGolus steht doch as nor b'misas and reyin nach im bitter von Guf and Nefesh Bahamas in der Aveda von his loving Hashem with all your might that results from his descent into the physical plane, and particularly in the era of Golus, as it says, like after the passing they see. In other words, the revelation experienced by the Neshama comes only after it concludes its refinement of the body and the animal soul through the divine service of Aved and Skafia and Isapcha, but not Bechayin. If them is the emperor, so what's the answer? What do we say? We say Pashas Pintos like the things that was Ben Amitzarim. Thus is called Mander Mantras over the Shem Salam. It says Ven Afilu the Aveda, Ven Afilu the Aveda Hecher from Hexta Madrigas gate is Nidares from to the even when his service is on the loftiest levels, he's still confined. Shas Obers and Avedas and Tichmaseres Nevesh Mamish Hepech Atev Lagamri. Belmalt gate there raised from Geder Nivra. Filu from the Geder Neshama Vizis Besher Sharsha was he is fort Ametzius O Nit Atzmus was he vert ein Zach Biochel mitten Atzmus Baruch Tashav Elikim Hashanah. Now, when he has this Maseres Nefesh, then the soul becomes one with the essence, as is written. The spirit will return to Hashem, who granted it. From Tadever Aved from Maseres Nefesh Pel Mamish, Shloimy heard the Aliyah of Alich Bligvul Masi to thus was the issue about the refinement and purification of the body and the animal soul, and the challenges of Golos of Maseres Nefesh. Accordingly, they enable the Neshama even as exists included within the body on the material plane to perceive and appreciate the unlimited ascent and progress that it achieves through Aveda. Yud. Wie der Mann früher ist da, noch an inyim Yuchel, was Shas, Matis, Masis, an Mechubaris, ist alle vor allem Makrius, wie dem Jahr, was der erste Tag von Ben Amitzarim, Zayin Tammuz, und also the letzte Tag, Tisha B'Av, is called B'Shabbos Parshas Balak. As mentioned above, there's another unique element when the Parshas Matis and Masis are joined together. There are times like this year that the first day of Ben Amitzarim, the 17th of Tammuz, and the last day Tisha B'Av fall out on Shabbos. The beer bazeh und die Shach to their Friedrich Asbara in the Mechiber Matis Masi. No, what's the explanation? The Iker Kavanim Friedrich and the Shamla Mata Bechal Frabes Managols Bechinas Matis is wie der Alte Rebbe sagt in Tanya von Eitz Chaim as an Shama Asmen ist zwischen Tiefen Klau. Nor Yorda if Mesaken sein im Guf Nefesh Avahamis and Cholka Ashayach Law Mechalas Elam Mazah. Now, the fundamental intent of why the Neshama comes down to this world, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, based on its Chaim, the Neshama itself does not require correction at all. It descends solely to rectify the body. No, their fun is echt verstandig, as der Iker Aveda mit dem Teke ve'ez von Matis, weil der Emeser Schar was wird bei jedem Matis und Masse, and der Aveda Lamata is nicht nur in dem, was the Neshama is sich misgaber if alle Lamas bestellen von Guf Nefesh Bahamas und Eif, Cheshach Hagalos und the Neshama tut, nor bei Iker in der Aveda von Iskafi und Isabcha von der Nefesh Bahamas und der noch mehr von Cheshach Hagalos und Cheshach Hagalos was is Mechutz von Nefesh Bahamas. Now, in that case, the neshama activity, the primary the purpose of the soul's service is to transform the neshama, the animal soul, and moreover the spiritual darkness of the world, including the darkness of Golus, a challenge beyond that involving one's own animal soul. Room der Tekef was is da, and the neshama bidas lamata, or filo der Tekef was tut sich in ear of Durchen Hester. Nefesh Bahamas in Welt is nicht kein Kiddush, weil die Neshama der Betzmalikus hat Betzmteinig und Elikus. Lieber tut sich durch dem nicht auf der Schleimung sich öffnen von Aliche, weil ihr Maß von Atzmus. Schas aber benutzt dem Ingen von Matis. So when a person uses the soul's power Matis, der Tekef, if Kef is ein und Mahap is ein, the Tev Nefesh Bahamas, he uses it to subdue and transfer the Tev Nefesh Bahamas. Was das is hepechtiva lagamri, which is against his nature, was durch them bread nifsa called shirosif nefesh bahamis, because through this the entire makeup is reduced to nothing. Befrad noch durch hisapcha von cheshach galus. Peilt das auf dem Shloimy sticken take of aliyah bligvul euch in dem nefesh bahalikus bei von bechol meidacha mer afilu von der meid von nefesh alikus. Warum durch them wird ayid eins b'kviyachol mit asmas. Now, this complete realization of loving Hashem with all your might surpasses even the boundless expressions of the godly soul itself, because through such service it becomes one, as it were, with the Hashem's essence. Yud, Aleph, like them is moving there, so we can understand this the fact that the 17th day of Tammuz, the first day of Ben Amitzarim, falls on Shabbos, Parshas Balak. The kavanah von Tachlis von Ben Amitzarim is Zayin v'fachti evlom l'sasin, as the mei hataynis kufa yehovku l'sasin l'simcha. The intent, the ultimate purpose of Ben Amitzarim is that, like he says, Hashem says, I will transform the mourning into celebration. That the days of fasting themselves will be transformed into the days of happiness and joy. Das is euch merumas in them was der Eberster hat der Navi Yirmiyah bewiesen am Makel Shokit, al Sheket ani al Dvorei Lasese, was das ist, wie Chazal sagen, Aremes if die auf Alef Yem von Ben am Punkt wie die Brief von Shkedem, B'shas Chanitase Agmar B'shulei Esem Vechad Yem. Now, it could be said also that this is alluded to that Hashem showing the Navi Yirmiyah, an almond branch, to emphasize that I am hastening to carry out my word. And the Chacham interpret this as an allusion to Ben HaMetzarim, which is 21-day period, just as an almond takes 21 days from the time of its budding until its nuts mature. Was der meat is der Eberster Meram is nicht nur dem Hebech Hatev ner Brike dem Mechuvim from dem Inyan, as soll sein Makel Shaki dem Al Yusei, in Sadatei, wie der Rebbe is Mavar, in them Inyan von Parach Mata Aaron. With this allusion, however, Hashem was not only emphasizing a negative dimension, the haste with which we will bring punishment, but on the contrary, and primarily the ultimate purpose, as the Navi, as highlighted by the positive dimension of a almond branch. And as the Alter Rebbe explains that the reason for the flowering, and the Alter Rebbe is mevar, in the meaning for Parach Mat Aaron, but Yigmoshke, as the time the phone is about of an iron staff and its production of almonds was to serve as a sign of the speed and the power within Hashem is drawn down into the physical world. The Shashid based Tammuz and Eich Tishabov is on the Shabbos, the Kvias and Heintikin Yar is the Shabbos Deches Atainis, and the rest of the Shabbos Mahab, and Tov, Mitzarm, Zayim, was his mitzvah, the Samchi, the Ange, al Derech, Vider in Fafachti, Evel Masasin. And when the Yud Beis Tammuz and Tisha B'Av fall on Shabbos, as in that year, Shabbos causes the postponement of the fast. In addition, Shabbos transforms a day which is part of Ben HaMatzarim, into a day which there's a mitzvah to rejoice and take pleasure, resolving the concept of transforming the morning celebration. But Fratas does the Teichen Fon Yom Shabbos Bechlal, and Shabbos is as Mizmahapech the Mazikim Latev. In particular, the above, as a whole, Shabbos is associated with the theme of transforming. So while we say Shabbos, we say a Mizmar Shir is a song for the Shabbos day. Teres Kenim explains that Shabbos alludes to the era when harmful animals will be nullified from the world, and the Semasetic explains that the ultimate concept of Shabbos is not that the harmful animals will be destroyed, but they will be transformed into good. Thus, Mein says, "Given Shabbos b'tchilas habriya, biz as das is given begashmis mamash v'chazal zagen lam leveisha is shimsha isa oira." This is comparable to the state of Shabbos at the beginning of creation. Such transformation was manifested in the actual physical sense, as the Chacham say, the light shone for 36 hours. Das heißt, a Shabbos musste tut auf begille dem Inyan Yisabcha von the Ben HaMatzarim, from Inyan Shlemes Shabbos, wie sie es gewinnt begole b'tchilas habriya, is mahapach seinem cheshach alayla le'er v'layla yikayim yor, hepech in agolas Ben HaMatzarim was as mahapach yim b'layla. In other words, it is most complete sense. Shabbos brings about the transformation of Ben HaMatzarim in a revealed manner, in its perfect state, as it was visibly manifest at the beginning of Golos and Ben HaMatzarim, which transforms day into night. Now this follows that when you design Tammuz, the very beginning of Ben HaMatzarim falls on Shabbos, the cure is being prepared before the wound of Ben HaMatzarim. And Shabbos transforms these days at the very onset. Thus, macht leichter der Aveda Adam as the Ben HaMatzarim, the Aveda von Mטות-מסעי, die zusammen biyachad canal in dem Hisabchos von Nefesh Bahamas and Golos. This facilitates a person's Aveda of Mטות-מסעי that their fusion, as explained above, transforming the animal soul into exile. Okay, Yud Beis, last ice. There says Mitzadi Pashas Batera. Pashas Balak was ihr Teichen sein die Brachas von Bilam. Similar concepts apply with regard to with the Torah. We already designed Tammuz, Pashas Balak. Its content is the bracha of Bilam, which were delivered because Hashem, your Hashem, did not desire to listen to Bilam's, and Hashem, your Hashem, transformed the curse to bracha. Was das der Uftu dabei ist gewesen, nicht nur der Etzem Inyan von wie Hafech Hashem Lekech Alachas Bracha Akol Bracha, nor was das ist gewesen, dafür durch Bilam was is der Leum von Meisha, das heißt der Tachlis von Hepech von Kedusha. Now, this that the brachas involve not only of a curse into bracha, but especially the fact that this came through Bilam. He was the one who corresponded to Moshe in the realm of evil. In other words, he was the antithesis of Kedusha. Noch mehr, der Sinn von seiner Nevuah ist gewesen, wenn er achras Yamim wegen der Gula durch Mashiach zu kennen, wie der Rambam ist wahr, was wird erreicht nehmen Gideon von dem Galus von Ben HaMitzrayim the Gamri. Furthermore, the conclusion of the prophecy concerns the end of days, the ultimate redemption through Mashiach, as the Rambam explains, at the time Mashiach will lead the Yidden out of Galus and from Ben HaMitzrayim entirely. Shas die alle Yidden kommen zusammen. So when all these factors, so again, and when all these factors occur together, matis umasis and mechubarim. When you have matis and masis together, mela leint min oich pashas pinchas and ben mitzarm, and then you read pashas pinchas ben mitzarm. Befrat in der kfias von heitige Jahr, as ascholos mea mitzarm is b'shas in b'shas is b'shabes is min leint pashas balak, and then you have the beginning of ben mitzarm, you read pashas balak. Is thus noch mer marda yehov chuyam elu such l'simcha. So then we're able to transform even more so the days to such l'simcha, and from the makal shakid, so ver in the shkida l'teva, and from the almond branch to transform into a sign of haste for good. Shkida sagula, hastening to bring the geula. So sign shakati lahakas bnei Yisrael miyad, hasten to bring his children into Eretz Yisrael immediately. B'shaita chada b'riga chada zal zayin the geula idim she'es et keni lamata masarat tefachim. May this cause the ultimate redemption led by Mashiach to be manifest in the physical world immediately with a single divine act.